Welcome. Welcome to this gathering hosted by the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bowling Green. Whether you are here in person or joining us online, we are so glad that you are with us today. My name is Laura McGee, and I am your service associate today. Please take a moment now to make sure that your cell phones are set to silent so that we can be fully present for our service. We are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, however you identify, wherever you come from, and whoever you love, you are welcome here. Our Sunday services are different each week so that we can honor and learn from our wide array of traditions and beliefs. Today, our speaker is the Reverend David Pyle. Today, we're presenting a recording that is provided to us through the Mid-America UUA. And I just want you to a note here that we are a UUA congregation that is a member of our national organization. So when you become a member here, part of what we do is take a census and we pay annual dues, and those are also distributed to the region, to the Mid-America UUA. And one of the services they provide is sermons like this, so that small congregations like ours can use them. And we do this type of sermon about once a month. And it's really awesome because we have a UUA minister who speaks to us in something that's been prepared especially for congregations like ours. Though we each walk our own path here in this place, on the land of the Osage, the Cherokee, the Shawnee, and the Yuchi, and now at this time we journey together as one community. For Unitarian Universalists, the flaming chalice is a symbol of the light of learning and the love of our community. This morning, our chalice will be lit by Jürgen Zirnstein. He's a relatively new member, having joined just a few months ago. As our congregation's chalice is lit, please light your own chalice at home if you have one. What?
I may have to stand here.
I remember last Sunday it went out on its own. You guys might remember that. It went out on its own, and it drowned in wax.
Sorry.
So, here, let's set this one right up there. Okay. Please join us in singing hymn 362, Rise Up, O Flame.
Rise up, O flame, my light, oh, joy to us,
Our opening words will be given this morning by Connie Erickson.
Good morning. In spite of despair staring me in the face on the political horizon, I have never lost my peace. In fact, I've found people who envy my peace. That peace, I tell you, comes from prayer. I'm not a man of learning, but I humbly claim to be a man of prayer. I'm indifferent to the form. Everyone is a law unto himself in that respect, but there are some well-marked roads, and it's safe to walk along the beaten paths trod by the ancient teachers. This is by Mahatma Gandhi.
And Forrest will lead us now in a hymn. This is number 16. moments for meditation, reflection, and prayer. The singing bowl will lead us into silence. After the silence, you are invited to join in the song Spirit of Life. The words will be shown on the screen. As I mentioned just a moment ago, our sermon this morning is pre-recorded by the Mid-America staff for us. The title is Reflections in Seaglass, and our speaker is the Reverend David Pyle. He is the regional lead and a congregational life consultant with the Mid-America regional staff. Reverend Pyle holds a Master's of Divinity from the Meadville Lombard Theological School and a Bachelor's of Arts in History and Political Science from East Tennessee State University. He completed his clinical pastoral education residency at Advocate Lutheran General Hospital in Park Ridge, Illinois. He has served as a minister for congregations in California, Michigan, Illinois, and as an administrator for a congregation in Texas. He also serves as the Deputy Command Chaplain for the Army Reserve Sustainment Command. He lives in Oak Grove, Kentucky.
It began innocently enough. I guess such things often do. I remember the day it began. It was a late afternoon, and my wife Sandy and I were walking the beach in Port Hueneme, California, just about a decade ago. As we were walking, Sandy stopped, leaned over, and picked up something. Usually that meant an interesting shell, maybe a sand dollar. Sandy and I have a collection of shells from all the beaches where we have lived or visited since we became a couple. Sandy exclaimed, "Ooh, Seaglass." I had never really seen Seaglass before, or so I thought. I have now seen this moment of awakening happen in dozens of other people. In truth, if you've walked beaches for any amount of time at all, you have seen Seaglass, but your mind was just not registering having seen it. I've come to believe that you have to be focused on looking for Seaglass in order to find it. And once you've learned that focus, you find it all around at most beaches. You can stumble across the small pieces of beauty, wisdom and truth that surrounds us all the time, but to find them in earnest, takes training and intentionality. I will never forget it as Sandy stood back up, and her hand was a small piece of green glass. It had been etched over time by the sand and the waves, by collisions with rock, by the etching of a salty sea. It had been battered and worn from the beer bottle it probably once was to this smooth-edged, weathered piece of green beauty in her hands. What had begun as trash, as something someone had thrown away, had been turned by time and the world into a jewel. It is in how a truth is worn, how it is weathered by the rough and tumble time and tides, that it is brought to its essential nature. A truth that is true new may yet to have found its beauty. My eyes must have lit up, and my heart must have soared, and so began what became my spiritual practice for the next 18 months. Walking the beach at Port Hueneme Pier each morning, searching for Seaglass. And one of the first realizations in moving into that spiritual practice was, though I walked the beach with my eyes cast downward, searching the sands for small sparks of color, I was not doing so alone. It soon became clear that there was a community of Seaglass pickers walking the beach, and that I had yet to be granted full membership into that community. Entrance into any community, especially a spiritual community, takes a little time and effort. While a community must work to be open to allow for those who are new, those seeking entry should also realize that it takes time to build the bridges of relationship and commonality. I remember how I first began to be accepted as a fellow Seaglass picker. As I walked my meditative search pattern through a particular pile of rocks, an older woman who was searching the same pile asked if I was looking for Seaglass. When I said yes, she smiled, and then opened up the lid on the small cup, the paper cup she carried, and showed me her finds of the day. And then I showed her mine from the little Ziploc bag I had. We chatted for a moment, a feeling of kinship that we could not define, admiring each other's finds. And then in silence, we moved back, each into our individual searches. A common search for truth and meaning creates a bond between people, one that is often difficult to explain in words, and feels awkward when you try to define it. But it is no less real. There are different levels of community, though. I remember another morning, walking the beach, when I was searching a particular rock pile, my head cast downward, my entire awareness focused upon the search of my eyes for the particular telltales of color and texture that signify a piece of Seaglass, when I was startled by someone yelling at me that this was her pile of rocks, darn it, and I should go look somewhere else. People can become possessive over truth, believing that there is a limited amount of it in the world, and that if they can possess the most of it, they will be better off than others. They will have power. If someone else finds a truth before they do, it feels like a loss to them, not a gain for all. After I moved away, my meditation broken and in some inner turmoil, another Seaglass picker whom I had shared finds with before came up to me and said, "Welcome to the club, David. You're not really a fellow Seaglass picker until Nancy yells at you at least once. Did you know she calls you Bigfoot?" We then had this amazing discussion about how some people believe that anyone who picks up a piece of sea glass before they do is, in essence, taking something away from them that they would have eventually found, rather than realizing that there's plenty of sea glass for all. A sense of scarcity related to the search for truth and meaning can lead one to anger at others who have found a truth before you, and a willingness to create walls of separation because of it. I also discovered that walking the beach in a grid search pattern, almost like walking a meditation labyrinth, which I also love to do. With my eyes cast downward in a questing gaze, looking over each pile of rocks and expanse of sand, it's a wonderful way to get people to ask me what in the world I think I am doing. Sea glass pickers don't ask. They know. They can spot the patterns. The other congregations that search the beach each morning can usually tell as well. I can now identify the seashell pickers, the fossil hunters, the metal searchers, the driftwood seekers by their patterns of movement on the beach. At least at Port Hueneme Beach, those who search for sand dollars are often those new to the beach or tourists. But I have found that searching for sea glass brings people to come ask me what in the world I think I'm doing. It has happened not only in Port Hueneme, but in the decades since in Florida, in Delaware, in Massachusetts, and even in Puerto Rico. Strangers will ask me, "What are you doing? Have you lost something?" One person once asked me if I was on medication. My favorite question I have gotten was, "What are you searching for?" Indeed. What am I searching for? If I said truth, it might be even more confusing. So I just tell them I'm searching for sea glass, and will often open my little bag to show them. The reactions have been amazing. "Ooh, pretty. I never knew there was any sea glass here." "Wow, where does it come from?" "I didn't know the ocean made glass." "What do you do with it?" "Are you unemployed?" "So, you wander the beach picking up trash. Well, that's very nice of you." "I don't believe you. I come to this beach all the time and I have never found any sea glass." "Wow, can you teach me how to find sea glass?" An intentional, inspired, and disciplined and focused search for truth and meaning conducted through daily life and your own human experience is so countercultural that people often don't know what to make of someone who is practicing. And they do not really know how to respond. I've taken to telling people when they ask me what I am doing wandering the beach in a search pattern in the early morning or late afternoon hours, that it's part of my prayer life and meditation. First, because it does sound kind of super spiritual of me. And second, it shortstops some of the stranger questions. What was illuminating to me when I started calling it a spiritual practice was the reaction of my fellow sea glass pickers. They immediately knew what I was talking about. There is something inherently meditative and spiritual about the practice of sea glass picking. In fact, I think I have learned as much about meditation from talking with my fellow sea glass pickers over the years as I did from those years sitting on the cushion every day. One fellow picker told me that each time she finds a piece of sea glass, she offers a short prayer of gratitude to God. and that it brings the feeling of gratitude into her whole life. Another fellow picker once preached to me the whole sermon she had crafted on picking up Seaglass. She didn't know it was a sermon, but she'd preached to me this whole sermon on how God takes the places in our lives where we are broken and over time rounds off the edges, smooths the rough edges, polishes and edges away the surface, and turns our broken, hurting places into jewels. Several fellow pickers have told me how inspired they are, how Mother Ocean can take something that human beings made and then threw away and turn it into beauty, and how that inspires them to create beauty in their own lives. These are often the artists who are searching the beach for sea glass in order to use in their art. One told me she gives away all her sea glass because it's not about the sea glass at all. It's that she finds that she is a calmer, nicer person for having spent an hour each day searching for the sea glass. It's about the search, not what you find. I've come to believe that every sea glass picker has a sermon, or three. And once you're in the community, they will share those sermons with you. Mostly, they are worth listening to. The difference between they and I is that I occasionally get to preach my sea glass sermon in actual pulpits. We all have at least one sermon in us, but the more intentional we are about the search for truth and meaning in our lives, the deeper that sermon will be rooted. One of the most powerful sea glass sermons that I have ever borne witness to on the beach was by a young woman, a fellow sea glass picker. We'd met on the beach and went to share our finds with one another, kind of one of the core rituals of being a sea glass picker. And she shared that one of the most important lessons for her was to learn that not all of the sea glass was yet ready to be sea glass. Not all the glass you find on the beach was ready to be sea glass. It wasn't cooked. It had not yet been weathered enough by the waves and the sands. She shared that one of the most important lessons for her was learning to keep just the fully cooked sea glass and to let the undone sea glass return back to the ocean on its journey to become something beautiful. Not all of the truth you may find is ready to be held forth. Truth takes time to develop, to have the extraneous worn away, to get down to the essential. This kind of truth that has been worn by time and tides, by wind and waves, it goes by many names. Some may call it scripture. Others may call it wisdom. Over time and experience, you get to know when a truth is fully cooked. But you have to learn how to recognize it. Too often, a truth is held forth before its time. Two of the most important lessons I have learned while searching for sea glass have been that you can see different shapes, kinds, and colors of sea glass at different times. And that no matter how often you have covered a particular section of beach, you've never found it all. It did take me a while to realize that the color of the sea glass that I would find had a lot to do with the direction and the amount of sunlight. If there is not much sunlight, then I am most likely to see the green sea glass. And indeed, it is the easiest to see in any light. In diffuse sunlight, I'm most likely to find the sea glass that is clear when it's wet and turns white when it's dry. The most difficult sea glass to find is the brown, because it often looks just like the rocks. unless there is direct sunlight upon it. Any sea glass can be found in any light. Just some types of light make the color easier to see. And then there are what I think of as the special colors, rarest of colors. Blue is the easiest of these to see, but it is still rare. I found blue in many different shades, from dark to teal. Often I'd find blue near the water's edge, it seemed to me. On only 3 occasions of my life, I have found that what I thought was a piece of brown, but when I held it up to the light, my heart would stop because I would see that it was a piece of red. My pieces of red are ones I cherish. One time, I made it all the way home from the beach, and I was drying and cleaning my sea glass that I had found that day when Sandy, my wife, picked up a piece, and we noticed in the light that it was not brown. It was red. I also cherish the 2 pieces of yellow and 1 piece of orange, as well as 3 sea glass marbles that I had found, glass marbles that have been etched by the time and tide. And I also have this 1 leaded piece of glass with a wire frame running through it. And I've told myself stories about where that one could possibly have come from. Truth etched by time and tides into wisdom can be found differently at different times in your life. Sometimes the light from you is shining just right to see something that has always been there, but has never been illuminated before. I remember early on in my sea glass picking, where I would think there was no point in going over a section of beach that I knew a fellow picker had already been over. Then one morning, there were so many pickers out, I almost just walked home. But I'd come all this way, so I went out and I started walking the beach, and I found amazingly beautiful piece after beautiful piece over ground that I know others had already covered. Later, I took to walking over the same bit of beach several times during the same morning. And each time I would find pieces of sea glass that I had either not seen before or had arrived since my last pass. The beach is always changing after all, and just as I am always changing. Each time I walk over an area, I bring a different perspective, a different angle to the light. Others stepping on the rocks uncover something that might be underneath. Each wave passes through, brings the new, and uncovers what was already there. You've never found all the truth, beauty, and wisdom there is to find. The universe is full of more truth, beauty, and wisdom than can ever be uncovered. Sometimes it is obscured, but often it is simply that the last time you looked, you were not yet ready or able to see it. So while we seek new places to search for truth, beauty, and wisdom, we should not neglect the ground that we've already covered. It always contains treasures to be found anew. So may it be, blessed be, and amen.
It is at this time in the service that we take an offertory. And before we do that, I'd like to ask Diane Lewis to come up front and tell us what is special about the third Sunday in this congregation.
Thank you. On the third Sunday of every month, we take a collection for a charity that we've chosen. And this is the third Sunday, and this will go to Guess at Your Table, which is ending a campaign that we started back at the 1st of December where you collect your holiday change and you put it in a guess at your table box. And if you didn't do that, just put it in an envelope. Whatever you could do, we appreciate. This goes to the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, who does marvelous social justice throughout the world. I would also ask that you please give us your name when you turn in if you've got a Guess at Your Table donation today. All of the plate total today will go to Guess at Your Table unless you designate otherwise. Thank you.
We thank you for these gifts. May we use them wisely in the service of our congregation and our community. We would like to take a moment now to thank all those volunteers who made this service possible today. As your service associate, I want to express grateful appreciation to Diane Lewis, and who was our service coordinator today, Forrest, who has given us such wonderful music, and Matt, who is behind the curtain here, running the technology for us. We are so lucky to have them. At this time, we take a moment for community news. And the first one of those that I'm going to mention is that this coming Saturday, the 21st of January, we have a small congregation workshop, and it will be led by Phil Lund, who is coming to us from the Mid-America region as a consultant. If you are on our Slack channel, you already have the registration available to you. If you are receiving our email updates, I would expect that you will receive information on Tuesday. That includes a link to register. We are asking that you register because this workshop that goes from 10:30 to 3:30 also includes lunch. And we want to make sure that we're prepared. And the $5 that we ask is intended to help cover your lunch. And if that's an issue for you, we want you there nevertheless. So, yes, please join us. I was privileged to experience a number of presentations made by Phil Lund when I was part of the Midwest Leadership School of the UUA. I can tell you he is a highly experienced, very congenial and engaging workshop leader. So I think that this Saturday you are in for a treat. Our congregation doesn't do this kind of thing very often, so it really is something special. And the conversations that we have on that Saturday are designed to engage us with each other about who we are being and who we are becoming for ourselves and for the broader community. So I hope that you'll take time to come and be part of that. I think you'll be glad you did. Other announcements, Matt has one.
Hello everyone. I have good news. The Wi-Fi in the fellowship hall is up and running. If you're already connected over here, it should just seamlessly go ahead and connect while you're over there. And for those who are curious about the 3 Wi-Fi networks that are here, the guest one is for anyone and everyone. The member one, you can just come to me, ask for that password, and you're welcome to share that as, with any member that you want. And the staff one is for people like me and our office workers. That is all. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Yes. All right. At this point, I want to mention that we issue an invitation to learn about membership. If you have questions about Unitarian Universalism or about joining this congregation, please speak to someone on our membership team. And I want to ask membership team members to raise your hand and hold it up for a moment so people can really look around and see you. Okay? So if you're just curious about membership or you want to know more about Unitarian Universalism, what is it? Please speak to those individuals. You can also speak to our board president, John Downing. John, would you raise your hand? He's sitting right in the center, front there in the grayish sweater. Or you can email the president. You can email John at president@uubgky.org. You can always find out more about us by including including our community news, by reading our weekly email updates. So if you would like to receive those, be sure that you sign up for that. I saw some people filled out a yellow card this morning. If you're a new visitor, that's a good way to do that and get on that email list. You can also look at our bulletin boards. There's a really big one right out here. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and look at our website. So, all right, we have a last hymn. Forrest is going to lead us in 118, This Little Light of Mine.
Please stand as you are willing or able.
Erickson will give us our final reading.
I want to age like Seaglass, smooth by the tides, not broken. I want the currents of life to toss me around, Shake me up, leave me feeling washed clean. I want the hard edges softened as years pass. I want to enjoy the journey and let my preciousness be, not in spite of the impacts of life, but because of them. Amen.
At this time, we close our live stream of the service. We bid farewell to those who've joined us online. We hope you found this service meaningful, and we invite you to join us again. Be well and go in peace.